I have so many fantastic insults lined up for Justin Trudeau today, and I cannot wait to use them. I mean, I just have a whole pile of them just lined up before me. You can't actually see them. They're just off screen, but they are spectacular. We'll get to Justin Trudeau. The Me Too movement may be losing some of its luster. But first, we're going to say thank you to our sponsors over at Birch Gold. So if you look at the stock market today and yesterday and Friday, you might be thinking, now is a good time for me to be a little diversified. Now, I have most of my assets in the stock market, but I do have a significant portion of my assets in precious metals. The reason being that you never know when the government is going to inflate the currency. You don't know when the stock market is going to crash. You don't know. And that means that you ought to be hedging your bets at least a little bit. And that's where my friends at Birch Gold come in. Birch Gold Group has a long-standing track record of continued success with thousands of satisfied clients, countless five-star reviews, and A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. Contact Birch Gold Group right now. You receive a free information kit on physical precious metals. This comprehensive 16-page kit shows how gold and silver can protect your savings and how you can legally move your IRA or 401k out of stocks and bonds and into a precious metals IRA. To get that no-cost, no-obligation kit, go to birchgold.com/Ben. That's birchgold.com/Ben. Again, they're the folks that I trust with precious metals investing. Birchgold.com/Ben. Use that /Ben so that they know that we sent you. I mean, when the economy is this volatile, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have some of your money in precious metals. Birchgold.com/Ben. Okay, so speaking of the economy, the stock market dropped 1,000 points yesterday. It had gone all the way down 1,600 points yesterday. That followed a 666-point drop on Friday. Today, the stock market is basically bouncing around. It's last I checked, it's up by 56 points or so. But you never know. On days like this, you really don't know until about 3 p.m. Like late in the afternoon, you're going to find out when the stock market basically get close to closing and people decide where they want to finish their portfolio for the day if there's a major sell-off at the end of the day. Now, everyone is going nuts about this. Oh my God, it was the single largest stock market drop in the history of the United States in terms of pure points. Well, who cares about pure points? That's stupid. That's like saying that the GDP every year in the United States goes up. In pure dollar amounts, that's true. In terms of percentage amounts, that's not necessarily the case in any significant order. And that's the case with regard to the stock market drop. Just because the stock market dropped 1,500 points at one point, it was about a 3%, 4% drop yesterday. That is not even close to the top 25 stock market drops of all time. So people who are saying that this is the end of the world are stupid. By the same token, now President Trump, I've been saying this for literally his entire presidency. The president of the United States, when he goes out and he uses the stock market increase as an indicator of economic health, I said this while Obama was president. I've been consistent in saying it while Trump was president. The stock market is not a good reflection of the underlying economic fundamentals. Plus, the stock market is not the responsibility of any one president. So the idea that President Trump came into office and therefore he is responsible solely for stock market increases and decreases is stupid. I said the same thing about President Obama, so I've been entirely consistent on this point. Another thing to know, when you see headlines saying that trillions of dollars wiped out in wealth, billions of dollars wiped out in wealth, not unless you're one of the people who actually sold, right? So if you have a 401k, your 401k is worth less than it was yesterday at the beginning of the day. Sure, that's true. If you tried to sell it, it would be worth less. But are you selling your 401k today? Do you have to cash out today? If you're not cashing out today, the answer is you lost zero money. This is why Warren Buffett was famous for saying things like during the 2008 crash, people would say, well, your entire portfolio, you lost billions and billions of dollars. And Buffett would say, well, no, I didn't. I didn't sell. I didn't lose anything. And when the real estate market goes down, if you don't sell your house, you didn't lose any money. The value of your house may have gone down, meaning if you sold your house, what would it be worth today? But if you're not selling your house today, what do you care? And consequently, when the stock market rises, when they say Jeff Bezos made $1 billion in a day. No, he didn't. He didn't sell any of his stock. I mean, the value of his stock went up. So presumably if he tried to sell his stock, the value would be higher. But if you're not buying and you're not selling, then you're not winning or you're not losing money or gaining money. Okay, it's just the facts of life there, folks. The only people who may have lost money yesterday without actively selling are people who are on what are called margin calls, people who have margin accounts at the brokerage firm where they're basically borrowing money from their stockbroker in order to buy stock. And if the stock market goes down too much, then the stockbroker goes back to the person with the margin account and forces them to pay up some more money to buy more stock to keep the margins up to shape. But that's relatively rare unless you're a professional investor. Most people do not have margin accounts. So is it the end of the world? No, it's not the end of the world. And it's not just me saying this. The New York Times is saying this. Okay, the New York Times, which has an interest in putting forward the notion that Donald Trump is leading to economic collapse. Neil Irwin over at the New York Times says, ignore the stock market. The underlying economy looks fine. He says, what is the stock market telling us with its precipitous drop over the last several days? In all likelihood, not much of anything. That's because the stock market, though crucial in the long run for individuals accumulating wealth and companies raising capital, is so erratic as to be useless in providing information about the short run. The 8.5% drop in the S&P 500 could signify the onset of a global recession. It could also mean that some trading algorithms at a big hedge fund collided in weird ways. For what really matters, the well-being of the economy, look first at fundamental economic data. Second, look to bond market and other financial market indicators that are more reliable measures of investor expectations than stock prices. Basically, there's a theory going around over the last few days that the reason the stock market had a drop is because, number one, the wage data was goods, meaning the wage data went up. And so that meant that profit margins of companies were going down, so people sold some stock. That's possibility number one. Possibility number two is there were some signals from the Fed that the interest rates were going to rise, and that would make the lines of credit a little bit harder to get. And that means that the stock market is going to drop a little bit. Bond yields, I guess, were up. And so the stock market went down. Sometimes when bond yields go up, the stock market goes up. In any case, here's what Neil Irwin says: there's good news on both fronts, as both point to a global economy that will continue growing steadily in the months and years ahead, perhaps with inflation that is a bit higher than in the recent past. This contrasts with market sell-offs with drops in 2011, 2015, and 2016, which coincided with pessimistic signals in both economic data and the bond market. The stock market can, when looked at in concert with these other indicators, provide some useful insight. Right now, it appears to be more noise than signal. And he says the economic data has been solid in recent weeks. On Friday, the Labor Department reported the U.S. added 200,000 jobs in January. The Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta says they're looking at a 4% annual increase of economic expansion, which is a major number. That was the number that Trump promised, and people were skeptical he was going to get. Of course, there's plenty of statistical errors built into these numbers. They may turn out to be incorrect, but the bond market is looking optimistic about the future. Prices suggest that continued growth without inflationary overheating is the most likely future. The stock market has lost some ground since the start of the year because of the sell-off on Monday, but the yield on 10-year Treasury bonds is up in that span from 2.4% to 2.75%, which thinks that bond investors think steady recovery will allow the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates gradually. So in other words, this is just a market correction. Okay, now it may take a few months for the stock market to go back up to what it was, but the idea that we are in a full-scale economic collapse is really stupid. There's no evidence to that effect. Now, maybe that's what it turns out to be, but we haven't seen that, and we haven't seen any underlying fundamentals that would suggest that at this point. This is why it's so dumb for commentators to blame or credit the stock market for a particular president. So Sean Hannity, he's a good guy, but this is so dumb. Yesterday, he blamed the plunge in the Dow on Barack Obama, who has not been president since last I checked, January of 2017. It is now, for those who missed it, February 2018. But I guess that if Obama can blame Bush, then Hannity can blame Obama. Here's Sean going after Barack Obama for the Dow plunging a year and a half after he left office.
Because the Obama economy was so weak all of these years, we had just artificially cheap money. Now, what's cheap money? Cheap money is when you can borrow at ridiculously low rates. The era of cheap money at some point has to come to an end.
Okay, so Sean isn't completely wrong about this, but it's not quite that simple. The fact is that they're not looking at tremendous inflation rates right now. I agree with his analysis of the stock market under Obama, but that wouldn't explain why the stock market has continued to rise under President Trump, even as the money supply tightens, because the Fed has been raising rates gradually. In any case, the stock market has very little to do with politics in the end. It has a lot more to do with confidence in particular companies. People don't buy, you buy indices if you're in a 401k, but most people don't buy indices. Most people buy certain stocks, right? They're picking a certain bundle of stocks, high-risk stocks, low-risk stocks. Here's the deal, folks. You want to make money in the stock market, take a little bit of money, invest it in the stock market every month, and just leave it there. Just leave it there forever, right? Until you need it. Okay, if you did this and you've been doing this for your entire life, then when the stock market goes down, like this month, I'm excited. I do this every month. This month, I'm excited. I just got a discount on stocks. I get to buy a bunch of them. Right? Next month, presumably when the stock market goes up, I will buy again. And there's a good way to incrementally increase your portfolio, whether the stock market goes up or whether the stock market goes down. But everybody who's panicked when the stock market takes a dip like this, and, we must need major government intervention, unless there is a serious underlying economic problem like there was in 2008, government intervention is usually unnecessary and even more so counterproductive. Okay, so in just a second, I'm going to talk about Quentin Tarantino and Justin Trudeau and the insanity of the feminist left and the Me Too movement and what they're doing, because it really is getting kind of crazy out there. First, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Thrive Market. So you want to eat healthy, but you don't want to go over to Whole Foods and deal with all the schmucks in the Ford Priuses, in the Toyota Priuses, who are driving around with their bumper stickers that say "Save the Whales" and clogging up the parking lot because they don't know how to drive with their silent killer Priuses. You don't want to do that, right? You don't want to go to one of these overpriced organic food markets. Instead, what you want to do is go to Thrive Market. It's an online grocer with a mission to make healthy living affordable and accessible to everybody. They cut out the middleman. For the first time in history, you can purchase premium non-GMO organic products at wholesale prices. It's all delivered to your door. Plus, you can organize the products by a high number of certain indicators that you're looking for. So they have a kosher thing for me. So that's great. I can get a bunch of products that I know are kosher from Thrive Market. In one click of a button, you can sort Thrive Market's catalog by 90 values based on your dietary needs, from vegan to gluten-free, from paleo to non-GMO, and more. And they have a hyper-curated catalog. So you might find 15 almond butters at your local health store, and they'll all be really expensive. But at Thrive, they've narrowed it down to 3 or 4 almond butters. They are the best. And you know they're sourced from the best of the best. It's not just foods, by the way. It's supplements, protein powders, all the stuff that you're going to use if you're working out. And you can get them at 50% off retail. So everything is a lot less expensive than if you were to go to that organic food market, bull your way through all of the people with 7 nose rings and make your way to the counter with your protein powder that's 50% overpriced. Instead, you can go to Thrive Market. For my listeners, my friends at Thrive Market are offering you $60 of free groceries, pretty awesome deal, plus free shipping and a 30-day free trial. That is an incredible deal. Keep in mind, Thrive Market's prices are already 25 to 50% off retail, and now they're offering an extra $60 of free groceries. So again, $60 of free groceries plus free shipping and a 30-day free trial, which is an amazing deal when you go to thrivemarket.com/Shapiro, thrivemarket.com/Shapiro, and you get your instant $60 off of free groceries, which is, again, that's a lot of money that they're giving you right off the top. Thrivemarket.com/Shapiro. Eat healthy, eat fresh, and do it from the comfort of your own home, without having to go to one of these organic food markets that's filled with obnoxious people. If I have not made that clear, I hate going to Whole Foods. I mean, so this is why Thrive Market is great. Thrivemarket.com/Shapiro. Check it out. Get your instant $60 of free groceries and that 30-day free trial. And when you use /Shapiro, you let them know as well that we sent you. Okay, so meanwhile, the feminist movement, the Me Too movement, there was talk about whether they were going off the rails. Apparently, they have gone full scale off the rails. We begin today with Justin Trudeau. Suffice it to say that Justin Trudeau is Owen Wilson from Meet the Parents, except without the woodworking skill. Justin Trudeau is one of the more obnoxious, sycophantic, ridiculous, idiotic teenage girls in a boy's body that I've ever seen. I mean, it's insane. The guy's only famous because his dad was Gary Trudeau. His previous life, what did he do in his previous career? I can't remember. It was something ridiculous. It was like he was a grocery checker or something dumb. Not that grocery checkers are dumb, but it's not really a qualification for being Prime Minister of Canada. His career before that, let's see. In 2009, he was appointed to the Liberal Party's critic for youth and multiculturalism. In 2011, he was appointed as critic for secondary education. He worked as a teacher in Vancouver. He completed 1 year of an engineering program. 1 year. And then 1 year of a master's program in environmental geography. And he worked and he was an athlete or something. And so there's a bunch of pictures with his shirt off, and apparently this makes the lady swoon or some such nonsense. In any case, Justin Trudeau was on camera, and he said several silly things on camera. Here's one of the silly things that he said on camera. He was asked, someone wanted to ask him a question about mankind. The person asking the question happened to be a female student, like a woman. So Justin Trudeau mansplains to her that she shouldn't use the word mankind. Oh my goodness, just watch this moron.
Maternal love is the love that's going to change the future of mankind. So we'd like you to look into
we
that.
like to say people kind, not necessarily mankind.
What the F is wrong with this guy? People kind? Do you mean humankind, like an actual word? People kind? Yeah, as Jack Handy once said, mankind is made up of 2 words, mank and ind. You don't know what either of them means, and that's why mankind is so mysterious. But still, Justin Trudeau, my God, the man is, if the song Imagine could take human form and then eat a Tide Pod, that would be Justin Trudeau. Do you understand the stupidity of this? First of all, the word mankind comes from humankind. It is just a shortened version of humankind. Is there any woman on earth who is serious about feeling offended when people say mankind? Of course, mankind includes women. Okay, we are the species of man. It doesn't mean we are a species only of men. The levels of stupidity. But this is supposed to be empowering for women. Honestly, if you're a woman and you feel empowered because a man just mansplained to a woman that she can't use the word mankind, if that makes you feel more feminist because Justin Trudeau just told a female student who was talking about the power of motherly love that she shouldn't use the word mankind, that makes you feel like a real feminist, let me suggest that something is wrong with you in the head. That wasn't the only dumb thing that Justin Trudeau said yesterday. Justin Trudeau also compared ISIS terrorists, apparently, to immigrants from Vietnam, Greece, and Italy, which makes perfect sense.
First of all, the fact that one of the reasons Canada is successful as a country is because we have been open to people fleeing persecution, fleeing war zones, looking for a better life for themselves and their kids. When we welcomed in waves of refugees, whether it was the Ismaili refugees in the early 70s, whether it was the Vietnamese boat people in the early 80s, whether it was people fleeing the devastation of the Second World War from Southern Europe in the 50s and 60s, the Italian communities, the Greek communities, the Portuguese communities, and others.
Okay, so here's the problem with this. The question that he was asked here, the question that led to him saying all of this was a question about letting in people who could be affiliated with ISIS. Right, so the guy asked him a question and it said, how are you going to protect future Canadians like my young daughter 10, 15, 20 years from now when you're letting in people with an ideology that just does not conform to what we're doing here? And then Trudeau immediately lumped in a bunch of people who may be sympathetic to terrorists with all the other refugees coming in from all the other countries. He doesn't say we're going to ideologically screen people, which would be the proper answer. Instead, he says this because Justin Trudeau must have been dropped on his head as a baby. But it's okay because he comes from a famous family. Lest it be said that America is stupid for electing President Trump or for electing George W. Bush or for electing Kennedys or legacy families. Canadians, before you get on your high horse about this is your prime minister, guys. Good call. Okay, so if this is the new feminist movement, Justin Trudeau lecturing women about using the word mankind, that was not the end of the stupidity. The New York Times ran a piece yesterday that included a song. Okay, the person who did this song, and then they ran the entire lyric as an op-ed. And then the name of the woman is Emily Lynn. She voices Eric Trump, Ivanka Trump, Karen Pence, Nancy Pelosi, and Betsy DeVos on Stephen Colbert's Our Cartoon President. Of course she does. And she did a song about how hard it is to date. Okay, I just want to play some of this because if you want to date this woman, you are out of your mind. Maybe it's hard for her to date because she's a crazy person. Because here's her stupid song.
Hey.
Hey.
Have you been reading the news?
Yeesh, maybe let's order some booze.
Well, I'd really like to hear about your views.
This movement's gotten just a touch out of hand.
Well, change only happens after taking a stand.
Hey, would you ever want to come see my band?
What did you say? That's not okay. I'm feeling triggered and you've ruined my day. Hey, ho, ho. Donald Trump's gotta go. Join the resistance, you tone-deaf Joe Schmo.
Why wouldn't you want to date this? I don't understand. Why can't she get a date, guys? Like, all the guy said there was, I think maybe the movement's gotten a touch out of hand, and then she goes crazy and says she's been triggered and you need to join the resistance. And she says, have you been reading the news? She says, maybe I can order a drink. Because you're at a bar. Okay, what's wrong with these people? And then you wonder why you can't, my goodness. I love this. It continued along these lines, by the way, this crazy lady playing her ukulele, like Michael Knowles. And it continues. She says, this is one, she says, this guy's garbage. He's clearly a foe. Why? Because he said he wanted to order a drink. Maybe she'd want to come see his band. Yeah, that's sexual predation now. It continued along these lines, by the way. She says, you see, we're victims of systemic oppression. And the guy says, yeah, but thank God we're in a time of progression. And then she says, your deflection is a microaggression. And the guy says, I didn't mean it. Please don't be mad. And she said, oh, buddy, do you have more to add? And he said, hashtag not all men are that bad. And then she says, what did you say? That's not okay. I'm feeling triggered in every which way. Doesn't that plant look great? Go ahead, masturbate while I call Ronan Farrow to break up this date. Singing, ooh, men are toxic. Ooh, why on earth am I straight? Why on earth are you not in an insane asylum? I mean, my goodness. The guy legitimately says, in your little made-up mind, right? This conversation never happened. This is in your little made-up mind, right? That we're in a time of progress for women. True, but that's a microaggression. Then he says he didn't mean it. He backs off, and then he says that not all men are bad. And then she says that that's a microaggression. He's just like Harvey Weinstein. And then there's another one where she says, so I assume you've roofied my beer. And the guy says, man, that joke is way too severe. And she said, well, we've had a terrible year. And he says, I swear I sympathize with your plight. And she said, how? You're a straight cisgendered man who is white. And the man says, wow, can I say anything right? And she says, what did you say? That's not okay. My cat person doesn't exist anyway. Unless it's my cat, that's it. I'll marry my cat. He wouldn't hurt me because he's not like that. And then the cat says, I can't consent. She says, fair enough. Okay, maybe the problem here is that, oh, my goodness. Okay, so there are no more words. There are no more words. This was on the op-ed page of the New York Times. So maybe she's joking, but it's not clear that she's completely joking about herself. It seems like she's just treating men like men are all crazy. So that's just awesome. it was called the Dating Blues #MeToo. That's what the actual name of the piece was. So well done, New York Times. Okay, that wasn't the end of stupidity. So you want to talk about where Me Too should be useful? So Quentin Tarantino was caught on audio years ago saying to Howard Stern that he thought Roman Polanski had not raped a 13-year-old girl. It is impossible for a 13-year-old girl to consent. The girl was roofied and she was drugged, and then she was given alcohol, and then she was anally raped, apparently, by Roman Polanski back when she was 13 years old, back in the 1970s. Now, to be fair, Whoopi Goldberg said the same thing you're about to hear Quentin Tarantino say, and she has a spot on The View. But she's a lady, so I guess she's allowed to say that. Here's Quentin Tarantino saying something truly awful. But that's not why he's in trouble today.
Guilty of having sex with a minor. All right.
That she didn't want to have.
No, that was not the case at all. She wanted to have it.
Well,
and dated the guy, and
she was 13
and found out. Well, and by the way, we're talking about America's morals. We're not talking about the morals in Europe and everything. All right.
Wait a second.
Morals in
You have
Europe, morals
sex
in China.
with a 13-year-old girl, and you're a grown man. You know that that's wrong because she has
giving her booze and pills.
I'm not. Look, she was down with it.
Oh, you're crazy.
And she's talked about it. She's talked about it.
Oh,
now she's an adult.
So crazy.
Okay, so this is not what he's in trouble for, right? If he'd been in trouble for this, that would have made sense like years ago when he actually said it. But that's not actually why Quentin Tarantino is in trouble. Quentin Tarantino is in trouble because there is an article from Maureen Dowd in which Uma Thurman accuses Quentin Tarantino of making her drive a car. Yes, really. In America, we're so sexist, we force women to drive cars, as opposed to Saudi Arabia, where where men don't let women drive cars. So I want to tell you the whole story because I'm not a Quentin Tarantino fan. I'm not a Quentin Tarantino defender. I mean, you can hear from that clip. I think Quentin Tarantino is kind of trash. And when I say kind of trash, I mean I think that he's actually trash. But the extension of the Me Too movement out to things that the Me Too movement was not meant to cover grows apace and is pretty nuts. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. First, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at, oh yes, Man Crates. So I'm always very excited to talk about Man Crates because mancrates.com, they get you the best gifts. It's the only place to find awesome gifts that guys love. So Valentine's Day is coming up. Ladies, I've talked a lot about what men should get for you, right? That's why we talk about 1-800-Flowers. But here's what you can get for your man. You can get him a Man Crate because mancrates.com makes the perfect gift. We're talking about classics like the NFL Barware Crate, the Whiskey Appreciation Crate, the Jerky Heart, or the Salami Bouquet, right? Man brings you flowers. Ladies, you can get your man a salami or salami bouquet in return, and he'll appreciate it a lot more than flowers. They have all of these curated gifts, and they come in the crate with a crowbar, with an engraved crowbar, and you actually take the crowbar and you pry open the crate, or it comes in an ammo box. That's how I got my poker chips. They also have some pretty new gifts that are pretty awesome. I just got a guitar with my name engraved on it from mancrates.com. Now, do I play guitar? Absolutely not. Of course I don't play guitar. But I'm going to carry it around and look really brooding, and then my wife is going to be totally into it. That is the plan. That's why men love Man Crates, because the gifts are just incredible. They have thousands of 5-star reviews. Every gift comes with a complete satisfaction guarantee. Go to mancrates.com/Ben. You get 5% off. That discount is only available here, so get 5% off right now at mancrates.com/Ben. That is mancrates.com/Ben. It is spectacular. Again, you pry open that wooden crate with the included crowbar. All the gifts are just great. I've had a couple of them, and they're always fun. And I promise you, your guy's going to enjoy it. So mancrates.com/Ben. Pretty fantastic. Okay, so back to Quentin Tarantino. So Quentin Tarantino is not under fire for having made the grave mistake of defending Roman Polanski raping a 13-year-old girl like 10 years ago. Right? If you're under fire for that, then Whoopi Goldberg would also have to lose her job because she would not be part of the Me Too movement. Instead, he's under fire because there was a New York Times article about Uma Thurman and her assault at the hands of Harvey Weinstein. Right? And this article was not just about Uma Thurman. It was also about Quentin Tarantino. So in the article, Tarantino is accused of a disturbing car crash. So basically, in the making of Kill Bill, there's a scene where Uma Thurman is driving, and apparently Uma Thurman is a bad driver, and he wanted her to drive the car, and she did not want to drive the car, and they'd set up the whole shoot to drive the car, and finally he said to her, listen, it's an easy drive, you can drive the car, and naturally she swerved and crashed into a tree, and she was hurt, and she had to go to the hospital. And Tarantino talks about it. He says, listen, it was not a hard drive. I didn't bully her into it. She's a fully capable woman of saying no. I was annoyed, but it wasn't like I was forcing her to do it. I had driven it myself. It was a mistake, right? And then he released the tape, and the tape was included in the New York Times piece. Okay, so he's getting ripped up for that, for saying to his actress, maybe you should drive this car, when that was part of the script, when that's not exactly a stunt driving a car, like 30 miles an hour. It's so funny. They say like, oh, he made her drive 30 to 40 miles an hour. Okay, 30 to 40 miles an hour is like what you're driving in a school zone, basically. I guess you're not supposed to drive that fast in a school zone. It's how fast you're not supposed to drive in a school zone. But for commercial districts, that is the speed limit. So we're not talking about gunning it to 80 miles an hour and him making Uma Thurman do it. And then Uma Thurman complained because in one scene apparently, Quentin Tarantino personally choked her while the camera was on, and another he spit on her while the camera was on. And so he explains why all of that happened. And what he says is, listen, this was part of the movie. Right, part of the movie. And if you've ever seen Kill Bill, Kill Bill is an insanely violent movie. It's one of the most violent movies ever made. The whole thing is a revenge flick, a revenge fantasy flick, in which people have limbs cut off, in which blood is everywhere. There's a scene where Uma Thurman takes out like 50 guys. There's another scene where she kills a mother. Right? I mean, she has a baby carved out of her. I mean, like it's really egregious. The movie. It's a violent porn flick, and that's what Tarantino does. Tarantino is a director I've always disliked. I've always thought that Quentin Tarantino is basically a snuff film director who makes a few scenes that are really great. Like the opening scene in Inglourious Basterds is fantastic, but he can't sustain anything longer than 12 minutes of interest. But here is what he says about the spitting and the choking. So in the article, this Deadline Hollywood interviewing Quentin Tarantino. In this article, Uma complains about being choked by you in a scene. He says, let me address that. According to Uma, there are not quotes around that. Uma didn't share that with Maureen Dowd. Maureen Dowd interviewed other people on the set who mentioned it to her. If you notice, all that choking and spitting stuff is not in quotes from Uma. It's part of Maureen Dowd's prose. For some reason, there's a lot of hay being made out of this, which I don't understand at all. You've seen movies where somebody spits in somebody's face. And Deadline Hollywood says many. He says, well, that's what that was, a scene where somebody spits in somebody's face. I can explain why I did it exactly, but my question is, what's the effing problem? And he's sort of right. It's in the script that she is spit on, right? And then he explains why he personally spit on her, right? So he says, we've all seen movies where people get spit in the face. I'm assuming if it was a two-shot and Michael Madsen spat in her face, there probably wouldn't be an issue. But that wasn't the shot. The shot was Michael Madsen had snuff juice, and he seemed to spit out a stream of snuff juice. Got to Uma's face on the ground, and you see it hit her. Naturally, I did it. Who else should do it? A grip? One, I didn't trust Michael Madsen because I didn't know where the spit's going to go if Michael Madsen does it. I talked to Uma and I said, look, I've got to commit to doing this to you. We even had a thing there. We were going to try and do it with a plunger and some water. But if you had snuff juice to water, it didn't look right. It didn't look like spit when I hit her when we tried that. It needed to be a mix of saliva and the brown juice. So I asked Uma, I said, I think I need to do it. I'll only do it twice at the most 3 times, but I can't have you laying here getting spit on again and again because someone else is messing it up by missing. It's hard to spit on people, as it turns out. So apparently Quentin Tarantino fancies himself a spit expert. Right? He's especially good at expectorating tui. The Gaston from Beauty and the Beast. But in any case, he says that he didn't trust Michael Madsen with this kind of intricate work of spitting in Uma Thurman's face. So he did it himself. And he says, I'm not going to have a grip do it because the grip's going to be intimidated, so he'll screw it up. So they did 3 takes. And Uma said, if you really need a 4th one, go ahead and do a 4th one. So in other words, Uma consented to this because she's an actress. And actresses do all sorts of stuff in films. And she did many things in these movies that would probably not be pleasant to experience. How about the choking? So here's what Tarantino says. He says, in the case of the choking, when Gogo, who's Chiaka Kuriyama, throws her chain ball at the bride and the chain wraps around her neck, and then she's getting choked by it, frankly, I wasn't sure how we were going to shoot that scene. Wrap a chain around the neck, you got to see the choking. I was assuming that when we did it, we would maybe have a pole behind Uma that the chain would be wrapped around so it wouldn't be seen by the camera, at least for the wide shot. But then it was Uma's suggestion to just wrap the thing around her neck and choke her. Not forever, not for a long time, but it's not going to look right. I can act all strangly, but if you want to get my face red and the tears to come to my eye, then you kind of need to choke me, right? So it was Uma Thurman's suggestion. And so he did it again with Diane Kruger because it worked so well in Kill Bill. He says that when he did Inglourious Basterds, he went to Diane Kruger and said, look, I've got to strangle you. If it's just a guy with his hands on your neck, not putting any kind of pressure, and you're doing this wiggling death rattle, it looks like a normal movie strangulation. It looks movie-ish, but you're not going to get the blood vessels bulging or the eyes filling it with tears. You're not going to get the sense of panic that happens when your air is cut off. What I would like to do with your permission is just commit to choking you with my hands in a close-up. We'll do it for 30 seconds or so, and then I stop. If we need to do it a second time, we will. After that, that's it. Are you down to committing to it so we can get a really good look? It'll be twice and only for this amount of time, and the stunt guy was monitoring the whole thing. Diane said, yeah, sure. She even said on film, on an interview, it was a strange request. By that point, I trusted Quentin Tarantino so much that sure. We did our 2 times, and then like Uma with the spitting thing, Diane said, okay, if you need it, do it once more, you can. This is an issue of me asking the actress, can we do this to get a realistic effect? She agreed with it. She knew it would look good. She trusted me to do it. I would ask the same thing with a guy. In fact, I'd probably be more insistent with a guy. So everybody's like all over Quentin Tarantino because he asked actresses and they said yes. If they didn't want to do it, they could say no. If they wanted to do it a different way, they could say no. They all have agents. These are all actresses who make millions of dollars. Okay, so there are lots of reasons to dislike Quentin Tarantino. There are lots of reasons to think that his films are fetishistic and violent and nasty toward women. I think that a huge percentage of them are. I don't like Quentin Tarantino's work. I think The Hateful Eight is one of the worst movies ever made. I think that there's plenty about Quentin. I think Pulp Fiction is wildly overrated. By the way, the idea that men are abused in violence here also in his movies is obviously true. I mean, men get the worst of it in his movies. But the idea that Tarantino did something truly terrible by asking these actresses if he could do it himself because he wanted it to be exactly right, directors are weird. Maybe this is a fetish of his, but if the actress said yes, I don't really see the major problem. Call me crazy, but I don't see the problem. Right? There are lots of in a movie. Jimmy Cagney smashes a woman in the face with a grapefruit. It's one of the most famous scenes in movie history. He does it as a gangster. Is that female abuse? Jessica Chastain seems to think yes. By the way, Jessica Chastain, the actress, she came forward and she said, "Do we really need more movies where a woman is shown being harmed to show that she's strong in overcoming that harm?" It's like, well, yeah, sort of, because that's every movie ever made, whether it's with a girl or a guy. There's not a movie that is made, particularly an action flick, where a man or a woman doesn't undergo some kind of trauma and then have to overcome that trauma. That's called the hero's journey. It's part of every single story ever. So yes. Now, does that mean that we have to be graphic about it? I think not, right? I'm a fan of movies where we weren't graphic about these things. Does it have to be something over the top? I don't think so. That's why I don't like Tarantino's films. But the idea that we have to change the entire storytelling mechanism when a woman consents to be in a movie for millions of dollars and then makes her celebrity and her fame off of doing these movies with her consent. Again, I'm failing to understand how it is that consent is the final value if you consent to something and then a third party doesn't like it. It's kind of weird how this works now. Okay, so as we continue, we're going to talk about more on Memogate. We're going to talk about what looks like an admission against interest from Devin Nunes. We're also going to talk about, what is there really a there and the malfeasance of the media, and also about the Mueller investigation. First, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at the Business Wars podcast. So this is a brand new podcast, and it is fantastic. It's from Wondery. The basic premise of the Business Wars podcast is that everyday business is at war. Blue chips versus disruptors, American giants versus Chinese competition, founders against corporate raiders. Sometimes the prize is your wallet, sometimes it's your attention, and sometimes it's just the fun of beating the other guy. So this podcast about these battles between corporations, how some businesses beat other businesses, IBM versus Mac, McDonald's versus Burger King, right? This is Business Wars. It's hosted by David Brown. He's an economics reporter, managing editor of the Texas Standard. So whether you're talking about Coke versus Pepsi, two rivals in small businesses across the country, these are stories that are like dramatic thrillers about businesses struggling to survive in a cutthroat world. Business is pretty exciting when you're involved in it on a daily level, but if you don't know the stories of major businesses going at it, this is the best place to find out about it. The episodes are really well done. I've listened to a couple of them. They're fantastic. Go subscribe. Listen to Business Wars on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this. Subscribe right now. Business Wars on Apple Podcasts. If you like it, leave them a review as well. Business Wars, definitely worth the listen. Again, really enjoyable stuff. Okay, so the latest on Memogate. So the House has now voted to release the Democratic memo. So as you recall, there is the memo from Devin Nunes. Okay, then there is the House Intelligence Democrat memo that is supposed to rebut the memo from Devin Nunes. So on Monday night, according to Adam Schiff, they have voted to release a new memo that will supposedly rebuke the earlier memo released by Republicans last week. So as I mentioned, I don't think that the memo is a complete nothing burger from Devin Nunes. I also don't think that it's a huge something burger. I don't think it's the end of the world. It is unclear to me that the memo, for example, establishes what it seeks to do, be a little diversified. Now I have most spectacular. We'll get to
Breaking. Trump's lawyers make recommendation on whether he should meet Mueller. The idea of putting Trump in a room with 5 or 6 hardened, very clever lawyers, all of whom are trying to trick him and trap him, would be a very, very bad idea. Lawyers representing President Donald Trump have reportedly advised the president against meeting with special counsel Robert Mueller for an interview under oath, a move many have cautioned is a perjury trap. The report from the New York Times, published late on Monday, says that the president's lawyers are concerned about his shoot-from-the-hip communication style in which he occasionally contradicts himself. Citing 4 people briefed on the matter, the Times claims that there is a friction brewing between the president and his lawyers as he is eager to speak with Mueller since he believes that he did nothing wrong. The Times notes. But John Dowd, the longtime Washington defense lawyer hired last summer to represent Mr. Trump in the investigation, wants to rebuff an interview request, as do Mr. Dowd's deputy, Jay Sekulow, and many West Wing